Good morning on this Sunday, September 6th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger announces his plans to help voters in the long-awaited November election. Governor Kemp extends the emergency order for COVID restrictions as the feds tell states to prepare for a vaccine rollout by November 1st. And a fight over Stacey Abrams between two Republicans in one of Georgia's U.S. Senate races. Phil, Janelle, and Kathy are all here, along with Bobby Capel, who is filling in for Theron. They're all joining us from their homes. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger says his office is taking several steps to make voting easier for everyone, including a new online way to request an absentee ballot.
We are making sure that our office is flexible, adaptable to the situation on the ground, and we want to make sure that we don't create any undue barriers.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has launched an online portal where Georgia voters can request an absentee ballot rather than manually having to request one by mail. Raffensperger says his office is also helping to recruit poll workers.
We've already gotten over 5,000 poll workers that have volunteered to be poll workers. Statewide, we probably need 15 to 20,000. The counties are out there looking at hiring.
Absentee ballots will start going out 10 days from now on September 16th. Phil, we'll start with you. Do you feel like Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is doing everything he can to try and make sure it's a smooth election?
I think he is trying to do everything. You've outlined some of the things he's already done, ranging from the portal to getting more poll workers. That is a big effort that needs a priority in all 159 of Georgia's counties. We've got to get more poll workers. And I would just, as a footnote, add that, yes, you got absentee ballots, but let's do in-person early voting. When I did it during the runoff, there was hardly anybody there. You could go in and out. I think that you just pointed out, Lori, it's starting soon, and so I think that go to the polling place. I think if you're a little worried about your health, I think that's the best thing to do. And you know your vote will be counted. Like in Fulton County, we had problems with the absentee ballots. Some didn't get them, so go and vote for sure. That's my plea.
Absentee ballots going out on September 16th. Once again, Bobby, over to you. Welcome. All eyes will no doubt be on Georgia come November after Democrats have accused the state of voter suppression. Your thoughts on the Secretary of State's efforts?
I got to be honest with you, Lori. Every time I hear the Secretary of State of Georgia in the same sentence, it just makes me roll my eyes because this is happening continuously. The fact that we are now 2 months out from an election and still trying to figure out how to deal with putting on said election, to me, is a systemic failure at the top of the Secretary of State's office and lands directly on his desk. This has been going on. We've known about COVID now for 6 months. We had a dry run, which was a disaster in June with long lines. I agree with Phil on one thing, that the voting early thing should be available and is a good way to vote if you're protecting yourself and going in and if you're willing to do it. But for the folks who have pre-existing conditions and who aren't interested in doing that, they have to know that their vote is going to be counted. And right now, that's just not the case.
Kathy, do you agree with Bobby on that point? I mean, what more would you like to see from the Secretary of State's office? It sounds like he's really working with counties like Fulton to make sure that they are prepared.
Well, I appreciate some of the efforts that he's made, and in all fairness. However, I do really wish that he had gone ahead and mailed absentee ballot requests to every Georgia voter. Not everybody in the state of Georgia has access to broadband. We've already seen that in the attempts to educate kids at home, particularly in rural parts of the state. Everybody's challenged by this. It would have been great to just facilitate that and get those ballots out early. But here's the deal, everybody. You got to make your own decisions about what you want to do, but make a plan. Decide what you're going to do it early, and execute clearly. And if you need help, call somebody if you need help with your absentee ballot request, not with your voting, but call somebody to help you figure out how to negotiate actually securing that. But make a plan.
Janelle, let's follow up on this because the president of Gwinnett County's NAACP says she was disappointed but not surprised. Gwinnett commissioners decided not to send absentee ballot applications to all registered voters at a cost of $3 million, along with another $500,000 to pay for return postage of the ballots. With the online portal, is it necessary to send applications by snail mail?
No, it's not necessary at all. That's the whole point of having an online portal. And just one quick point to what Bobby was saying, this is not about trying to figure out how to put on the election. This is about figuring out how to make it more efficient. That's what's going on right now. And I don't understand this whole argument around, mailing absentee ballot requests to every single voter when we're not changing the voting process. We've been doing this for the past 100 years. I mean, how about we just continue to do what we've been doing? If you want to vote absentee, request a ballot. We shouldn't have to mail one to you for you to decide whether you want to use it or not. That is a waste of money. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. And I'm glad that Gwinnett saw this as an opportunity to speak up against that. To me, I'm telling you, it smells like fraud when we're continuously trying to demand that we put these requests in the hands of voters when we can simply just request one if we want it. If not, I'm with Phil. Go vote early. Go vote in person. Make sure your vote counts. But all of this is just getting a little bit ridiculous to me. I think that I really like the online portal. I think that's a great step in the right direction in order to making sure that we have things, all the way together. And I just ask that Secretary Raffensperger really pay attention to purging the voter polls as well.
Okay, Bobby, the Fox 5 I-team reported this week the Secretary of State's office has launched an investigation in Long County about accusations of double voting and ballot fraud. In fact, they tracked down one voter who says he voted twice just to prove that there are flaws in the system. And some say the county, which is in South Georgia, also counted unsigned absentee ballots. Does this lend credence to Republican claims that massive mail-in balloting leads to voter fraud?
Well, it begs the question, why in the world the Secretary of State's office, who is in charge of running statewide elections here in the state of Georgia, doesn't have some sort of system set up electronically that when you go to a ballot box and show up and put your ID in, that when you type your name in the computer, it doesn't show up that you've already voted in real time. We have real time in every other aspect of our lives, business, social, Facebook. You can post anything you're doing. How in the world can this state not get it together to the point where when you show up at the ballot box, are known to have voted before or not? I don't see a lot of people. We're trying to get a bunch of people out to vote for the first time anyways. I don't see a lot of people wasting their time trying to do double voting and all that. This guy wanted to prove a point. He said as much, and he's proved it. The point is, fix it. The state needs to fix this.
Phil, I'll let you follow up on that, but I also want to know your thoughts on the federal judge's ruling saying that as long as absentee ballots are postmarked on Election Day, they can still be counted. I think it's for up to 3 days afterwards. What a mess that's going to be in terms of finding out election results.
That's right, Lori. I'll tackle that one first. Just very briefly, they're changing the state law. This liberal judge has ruled changing the rules in the middle of the political game. Attorney General Chris Carr is immediately appealing this. It's going to the 11th Circuit Federal Court. I predict that it won't fly. But secondly, Bobby forgot to tell everybody that all 159 counties control the elections here, and the Secretary of State, yes, has oversight, but it can only do so much in terms of training and backup. So there is voter fraud. Bobby never admits that it happens. That's the myth that the liberals try to say, oh, don't worry about all-mail voting. So, yeah, I do agree. Let's investigate it, and it is being investigated.
Bobby, I'll let you follow up on that. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not admitting. We just had the discussion. Obviously, this guy voted twice. That's what he says, and I don't have any reason not to believe him. The fact is, they should have a database, and that should be on the state and the Secretary of State's office that can run through every county's portals, just like they have the portal, and make sure that they are able to acknowledge that somebody has voted in person or that they've received their absentee ballot.
All right, we'll leave it there, everyone. Thank you. Coming up, Georgia prepares for the rollout of a COVID-19 vaccine by November 1st. We'll discuss.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
The federal government has ordered states, including Georgia, to prepare for a rollout of a coronavirus vaccine by November 1st. And let's talk about the timing of this just before the election. Kathy, everybody wants to see a vaccine, but your thoughts on the timing?
Well, I just think that the president has completely gutted any faith in our public health system over the course of the many decisions or non-decisions that he's made. And there isn't anybody right now in this country that works in public health that is saying that there is going to be a safe vaccine by that time. But the real question is if there is, will we have any faith in the conclusion that this government would set forth to tell us that there is a safe vaccine? And that's going to be the real challenge, right? If there is one, no matter when it comes, will people feel like it's gone through the process to ensure its safety? I hope that we can, get public health back on track, but I don't see that happening until we have a regime change at the top.
Janelle, weigh in here. If we see a vaccine in 2 months, would you feel safe getting one, as Kathy had mentioned?
I don't know if it's so much about that. I just feel like it's really interesting that at one point it's, can we get a vaccine? We got to get a vaccine. We can't do anything without a vaccine. And now that we may have one, it's, oh, wait, I don't think it's going to be safe enough. And I'm just like, it seems like it's one thing after another. We have to keep in mind that this is something that kind of came on us without any type of warning whatsoever. I mean, when it comes to the vaccine, whether you take it or not, it's about having something and an option there that to help combat this disease so that we can continue to get the economy back running and get people back to their normal lives.
Phil, Governor Kemp says he sees both sides in the argument on whether to classify teachers as critical workers, exempting them from the 2-week quarantine required by many who come into contact with someone who has the virus. But some teachers say they should not be forced to go to school if they don't feel safe. What's the best way to deal with this situation? It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's a complex issue. I can understand why there would want to be an exemption. Of course, when the CDC changed some of the numbers last week, that was very interesting, and they made the point that, yes, it's really mainly old people with health problems that are going to have a serious risk with COVID. So if that's the case, I think the governor might be weighing in on the side of not worrying so much about younger people.
All right, I like to say elderly people because I think we all feel old.
Right, senior citizens. Senior citizens.
Bobby,
I think the CDC said old.
Some superintendents say they can't operate unless schools unless teachers are deemed critical workers. As I said, this is a tough one. What do you think?
There's no doubt this is a very tough decision, and there are arguments to be made on both sides. I'll just say we have family friends that are teachers in the Cherokee County School District, and I gotta say, they would never say it's public, but they've been very disappointed by the lack of centralized response and leadership. And you have to remember that even if what Phil is saying is correct, at that data he cited that it is mostly elderly folks that end up having the most issue with the coronavirus or folks with pre-existing conditions, we all either know elderly people or come in contact with folks who know elderly people or pre-existing conditions every single day. And it is our patriotic duty as Americans to protect each other and have each other's back, not just in times of war, but also in times like these. So you got to be responsible. At the same time, our kids are just dying to get some sort of this has been very tough on parents and children of folks who are under high school age, the middle school and elementary schoolers, because the virtual learning in general it's been a disaster in many states. I don't know one parent who thinks it's gone well. On the other hand, they're trying to balance safety.
Let's follow up on this, because if college students are watching this morning, a word of warning: continue please to wear a mask and social distance as you celebrate this long holiday weekend. Kathy, we saw hundreds of cases, a huge uptick on several campuses across Georgia this week. It seems you just can't keep college students from congregating in large groups. What should the university system do if the numbers keep increasing?
Well, I think what we're seeing is exactly what we thought we would see, right? When you put a whole bunch of people together, not even just young people, folks living in dorms, folks congregating in classes, people not wearing masks, people not wearing their mask right. There's just going to be contagion that happens. You see in Georgia Tech, they're moving people into single room dorms because you can't sleep in a room with your mask on with 2 people and not run the risk that you're going to get contagion. So this is going to be a continuous problem. Obviously, having students not have big parties and not wear masks and be crazy about it is complicating it. But what you're seeing also are in smaller colleges or in smaller jurisdictions that may or may not have hospitals, they're getting very overwhelmed very quickly.
Phil, follow up on this. What should the colleges do? I mean, we saw, I think it was the University of Alabama, they shut down bars and fraternity parties and sorority parties and things of that nature. Can the university system do anything else?
Well, I do think that, and I do partially agree with Bobby. I think it's very important that we get kids, whether it's young kids or college students, in-person classes and get education going again. I would look at a case-by-case basis, say with the university system with 26 institutions, that perhaps, parties need to be banned. Yes, you have to follow the guidelines. And I think that we're having some good news, though. I think that hospitals are not full up in this state. I want to clarify that from what Kathy said. And the curve is going down with regard to hospitalizations, and that's also good news, and cases are going down.
Yeah, there is some good news on that front. But Bobby, the governor on Friday kind of embarked on this statewide tour telling people, please, do the right thing. We don't want to erase progress here because we saw what happened after Memorial Day. Your thoughts on the governor's efforts here?
Well, there's no mystery as to how we bring those numbers down. It is by social distancing and wearing masks where appropriate when you're indoors and in close spaces with other folks. It's the reason our school systems haven't been allowed to go back to school, because so many people haven't been practicing and what they need to be doing. And that, of course, goes to the top and the leadership all the way to Washington, D.C. and down through the governor's office. But this is the most important thing we can do right now, is to ensure that we bring these numbers down so we can get kids back in school, get the economy back up and running again, so that people can be employed and we can move on with our lives through this without everybody getting sick. It does not have to be a false choice of one or the other. We can bring these numbers down and start to return to normal life, but only if we bring the numbers down, and that's the way to do it, with the masks and the social distancing.
I think we can agree with that. Thank you. We'll leave it there. Coming up, Stacey Abrams is in the middle of the battle between Senator Kelly Loeffler and Republican challenger Doug Collins. We'll explain straight ahead.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The Doug Collins campaign is accusing Senator Kelly Loeffler of having a cozy relationship with former Democratic nominee for governor Stacey Abrams, and this week released Instagram video of the two on center court at an Atlanta Dream game. But the Loeffler campaign says Collins is the one who is best friends with Abrams. Janelle, you're the honorary co-chairwoman of the Loeffler campaign. I just want to get your thoughts on the strategy here. I mean, is this smart? Aren't there more pressing issues to campaign on?
Well, first, if it's cozy to just simply stand on the court beside an individual, then that's a little bizarre to me. So Senator Loeffler was simply standing on the court. The moment that he's referring to was organized by the arena. They select the person that's being honored. They also organize the moment of recognition. So she simply, as a team owner, walked down the bleachers, down the steps, and stood on the court. What Senator Loeffler is highlighting, it's not so much the relationship between Collins and Stacey Abrams, but it's the record that they share. He voted with her on over 300 times while in the House. So here in Georgia. So that's what she's highlighting, is the fact that they share the similar ideologies and policy responses. So that's the big deal. This is simply retaliation. I get it, it's politics, but she was simply standing on the court.
Phil, weigh in here on this strategy from the Collins campaign.
Well, I think the Collins campaign needs to shift to other issues. I mean, just look at the fact that Stacey Abrams, whether you agree with her politics or not, and I don't, she was the State House Minority Leader, and you have to work with people if you're going to get things done. And I know a lot of Republicans that get pictures taken with Democrats and vice versa, and there's nothing nefarious about that. It doesn't mean you're surrendering your core values on either side. I think there are far, far more issues like looting and violence and reopening the state and COVID that ought to be addressed by the candidates.
Kathy, are you surprised by this strategy?
Well, I think it's a huge testament to the power of Stacey Abrams politically, that both on the R side and the D side, that where you stand around Stacey Abrams kind of depends on how you might win the race. So I think it's kind of fun to watch. The problem is it has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with what happens in this country, in this state, after people get elected, right? What we really need to make sure to do, all voters, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, is find out what the people you're going to vote for, how they stand on issues, how they stand on the economy, the deficit, public health, education, all those things. Nobody's nobody's putting out plans that tell us how they're really going to get a handle on this disaster that's occurring in our state and in our country. And I hope people will demand more in the ads and in the debates than just pointing fingers at who you stood next to.
All right, Bobby, this week, Congresswoman Lucy McBath weighed in that Senate race where Republicans and Democrats are all on the ballot. She endorsed Raphael Warnock. Do you think he's starting to gain momentum after lagging in the polls?
I'll take that in 1 second. I just want to go back to one thing they were just talking about. If they were best friends, so what? Who cares? Since when are you not allowed to be friends with a Republican or a Democrat if you're someone in the other party? This is supposed to be America, a melting pot of different ideas and values. So I just think the whole premise of it, it's just classic partisan gutter politics running to the right. And I think moving to the question you asked just now, in full disclosure, our firm does do work with Matt Lieberman's U.S. Senate campaign, one of the other Democrats running in that race. The fact is, because Loeffler and Collins have been chasing their tail to the right and trying to suck up to the president, it has left an opening in the middle and center left for Lieberman in this case, and that's my personal opinion as to why these polls have been so tight between Warnock and Lieberman going forward. As far as Congresswoman McBath's endorsement goes, she is a wonderful, wonderful woman, a member of this delegation who has put her entire life on hold to try and go serve for something she cares so deeply about, and I have nothing but respect for her and what she's done in Congress. We'll have to see where this goes.
Janelle, I want to switch gears. I don't have a lot of time to discuss this, but budget constraints and a lack of interest, the reasons given by Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan for scrapping plans to appoint a panel to discuss systemic inequality. Now, this was surprising to a lot of Democrats who said they would volunteer to be on a committee like this. Your thoughts?
I think that it's more so about what this committee is going to do than just having a committee. And that's kind of been the problem that I've had when it comes to all of these committees that focus on minority issues, is that if we're not talking about the fact that parents don't have school choice and so they're forced to send their kids to failing schools, or the fact that most minority cities are being ran by Democrats and ran by people who look like the minorities they represent, and we're still seeing that these people are being grossly impacted. I think if we're not talking about those things, those key issues, along with a host of others, then what's the point? You know, and I think that what the Lieutenant Governor was doing was making sure that the committees provides more detail as to what this is about. What are you going to do? What are you trying to achieve? There's nothing wrong with that. So I just say go back to the drawing board, make sure that it's right, and then bring it back to the table.
All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so we'll have to leave it there, because coming up, you know what's next. Winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I want to first start off by saying our thoughts and prayers are with one of our former panelists, Alexis Scott. Lost her mother, so we wanted to let you know we're thinking of you, Alexis, and what a beautiful legacy she leaves behind. And we will go over now, starting with Phil. We have about 3 minutes.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. Condolences to Alexis's family. I'm going to make a winner, though, one of our colleagues on the Georgia Gang, our own Janelle King. She was recently appointed to the Board of Corrections, and she'll be overseeing the prison system. And I can just see her in a designer SWAT suit leading a raid in a prison and getting contraband out of cells. So that's good. My winner, Bobby, won't like this at all, and neither will Kathy, but it's the landmark communications poll that was done just earlier in the week, and basically Trump is leading over Biden in the state of Georgia 52-48. And if you look at the crosstabs, Bobby, I hate especially to tell you this, but suburban women are coming back to the Republican Party because of the lawlessness and violence and the permissiveness of all too many Democrats.
Bobby, over to you. About 2 minutes in the show.
Okay, winner for today is Sonia Halpern, who is running for Senate District 39 in a special election. She's done so much work in the community, and that community would do well to have her serve in the state Senate. On the flip side, Barry Loudermilk, there's a new ad out from Dana Barrett's congressional campaign, who's running against Barry Loudermilk, that equates Congressman Loudermilk to a lapdog for Donald Trump. It would be funny if it weren't so true. I would just say also that, full disclosure, our firm did produce that ad, and so maybe I do have a little bias there.
Just a little, huh? Janelle, over to you.
Okay, so to everyone who says or comes up to me and asks how I didn't get involved in the Republican Party, on September 19th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., the Cobb Republican Party is hosting a volunteer job fair, which I think is awesome. It's being organized by one of the best volunteers I know, Pamela Alian. She's so proud of her. She does so much good work. So if you're interested in going, please go to cobbgop.org or call 770-272-0458. And lastly, my winner is Corey Ruth. He was recognized as the CEO in the CEO Spotlight in James Magazine.
Congratulations. And Kathy, we have about a minute left in the show.
Thanks very much. I want to congratulate Chris Clark and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. They had a great program this week on the state of rural hospitals here in Georgia, and you can look at it on their website. You can review it, but it was two CEOs, one from the Phoebe Worth Hospital in South Georgia and also the CEO of the hospital in Douglas, Georgia. And, they're really facing a difficult time, and Medicaid expansion is a difficult issue. But if you watch this show, you'll see the issue and also the fact that both of these hospitals are facing closure because they're running out of money because they're not getting insurance.
All right, we'll leave it there. We didn't have time to get it in last week, but a happy belated birthday to former Governor Nathan Deal, who turned 80. Best wishes to the governor. That's all for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the holiday weekend and stay safe.